All right. Let's adjust that. Let's adjust that just a little bit. Hello, everyone. Right in the middle of a sip, as always. I don't know. I hit record and then I start doing things that I don't need to be doing on camera. Okay, yeah. Welcome everybody. It's been a while. Honestly, I don't know if I live streamed in June, so apologies. We started out with a week off between school and summer camp, and then we were out on vacation, and then I think I was sick the other week, and 1 week turned into 2, turned into 3, turned into 4. So anyway, here we are. Not that these, in fairness, not that these live streams get a lot of viewership anyway, but they're more for me. They're a motivation factor for me. So if you're here, thank you. If not, no big deal. No big deal. Like I said, they're for me. Okay. Hopefully you enjoy, though, I guess is the point of all that. So we're going to break ground on a brand new project. And I say brand new. It's not actually brand new. But here's the thing. I don't want to talk for too long. I want to get Claude cranking on this in the background. So let's get Claude cranking on this, and then I will talk as it works to write some of this code. So I'm also gonna do something a little bit different this time. Instead of having to babysit Claude like 6,000 times, I'm just gonna dangerously skip permissions this time, I think. Let's just let it crank. Let's let it crank. Okay, so we're gonna say Claude. What is it? What is this called? I'm just gonna copy it. Claude help. Help me, Claude. Claude's gonna help me a lot. Where is this? Dangerously skip permissions. Are they in alphabetical order? They are. We're gonna do this. We're gonna do it. Claude. Well, first, let's PB copy. I'm gonna fill everybody in. Let me just get Claude cranking for now. So let's say Claude -- dangerously skip permissions. Let's see if that's right. Yeah, I accept. Don't explode my iMac. Okay, cool. Let me paste this in, and we're just gonna let it crank. It's cranking. Oh, we got an API error already out of the gate. Gotta log in. Oh, of course. I can't get through one stream without potentially leaking something. Let me go full screen me somewhere with the right buttons. That's not it. Oh my gosh. Where's full screen me? There's full screen me. I thought it was like command 3, but I guess not. Anyway, if you're in the chat, let me know. Let's take this opportunity. Let me know you can see me and hear me okay. I'm going to run login in the background. I've got a subscription to Claude. Yes, I do, Claude. I've paid for you. Let's get after it. I think this iMac rebooted the other day. Oh, we got to sign in again. Oh, this is going to take a second. Oh, crap. Okay. Oh, yes, of course. Now I got to get out to Gmail, and I got to get over here and over there and over here and over there. All right, hold on, people. Bear with me. Bear with me. Oh, and of course, I need to fire up one. Yeah, this iMac definitely restarted. I got to get in one pass now. Hold on a minute. We're getting there. Once we log in, hopefully we'll let Claude crank it. While Claude is cranking it, I'm going to explain everything, but Claude could take 20 minutes to kick out some code, so let's get him moving first. Claude, our pal, our buddy, our senior PHP developer pair. Okay, here we go. I'm logged in now. Authenticate. Authenticate. What did I just do? Authorize. Build something great. Okay, I can close this window. All right, did you press enter to continue? Let me make sure nothing's on screen that's going to leak. Let's close one pass. Let's close Claude's platform. Let's close my email. Okay. All right. I think Tokens are cranking away. I do wonder if I should have swapped the model here. It's just using whatever model. I don't think I have Fable access, in fairness. I looked at that before stream, and it seems I specifically don't. I'm probably not paying enough. I don't feel like this is very hard stuff. I'm gonna let it choose the best model, I think. Let me get back to these screens of all of us. Okay, cool. So Claude is running. We have dangerously skipped permissions, hopefully to have it not ask us 75,000 questions. Let me bring up another terminal. Let's go into workspace. Let's go into test double, and let's back up. Let's back up a second. So first, what we did was we pasted in this prompt that I downloaded. Now, where did I download that from? Over the weekend, from my phone, I was talking to Claude.ai through the web interface, through my phone, about basically rebuilding Mockery. Okay, so for those that aren't familiar, Mockery is kind of the de facto, in my opinion, PHP Mockery. It's kind of the de facto mocking library for PHP. Been around forever. I've used it forever. To that point, I'm trying to be a little bit delicate here, I suppose. I don't have any well, that's not true. let's figure out what. I don't have any serious gripes against Mockery. It has, again, de facto library for mocking. Here's kind of the general gripes, and I think we should bring up like a notepad and like kind of like list these out. So to that point, let me get over here and let's just like vi scratch pad.md. All right. So let's talk a bit about goals, right? One of my biggest gripes, especially if you have watched any of my past live streams, is that probably once every 6 months, I attempt to go in and contribute to Mockery on some tiny little paper cut thing that, you know, I feel like it could do better, right? So the biggest example of that, I think, recently has been the exception messages. So like when Mockery has an error, you get something like, so let's just say better exception messages. So when you get an error from Mockery, you know, like it says something like Mockery, you know, _0 ABFD, you know, received whatever, you know, unexpectedly. Okay. It's very, very technical thing with really like no help whatsoever, right? It's just like, oh, something received unexpectedly. And maybe somewhere in that dense like stack trace that also gets dumped out, you might see the thing that you were mocking. You might get a hint at what you were mocking, but sometimes it just like kind of says this and then it's like stack trace. And it's, again, for the de facto mocking library that's been around for like 10 years, I just think there could have been a little bit more time spent on these exception messages. I understand why they're not after digging in the code in multiple streams. Again, the code base is a bit dense. It's also integrating with PHP unit in fairness, so that is ultimately printing out the exception. So you really have to like hook into like 3 or 4 things to be able to kind of change this message. And again, it happens in like 7 different spots for all the various different like mock spies, doubles, etc., which I also want to talk about. Let's go over here and check in on this. Okay, it's cranking away. We're gonna trust it's doing something. Okay, so better exception messages. So basically what I'm saying here is that instead of this like dense, so let's just human words here, instead of a dense technical error message, a more like human readable, I'm gonna call it suggestive message. By suggestive, what I'm talking about is, again, almost not for as long as Mockery. I've used Mockery for much, much longer, but for the last 10 years of writing Laravel code, you've seen progressively that like Laravel's common, especially the common error messages, but I would go so far as to say all error messages within Laravel even exceptions. Look at the exception page to prove my point. Very like human approachable, very designed, very even suggestive, right? If you think of some of the assertions that are built into Laravel's testing layer, if you go and try to assert something on the database and it's wrong, instead of just saying like database record not found, it says, oh, hey, you were looking for this. We didn't see that, but we found this. Is that what you expected, right? Suggestive. If Mockery had that, I probably would not be recording this live stream right now. They don't have it, so I'm going to build it. Taking another step back, and kind of to the point of the exception message, it's too technical. Now, I appreciate that testing is somewhat technical, but one of the reasons I think people don't test or write tests is because there's a barrier to entry. There's some gatekeepiness, and especially as you start to get into like, you know, testing and doubling and test doubles and mockery and spies and fakes and, you know, stubs and all these different things, right, that are tests. And I can bring up an article here in a minute, and I've given talks on this before. So like, it could just be a lot easier. So basically same thing. Instead of, you know, mock, spy, you know, stub, partial, you know, fake, all that stuff, I just want, you know, double, right? And I'm choosing double because this goes into like test double Martin Fowler. This goes way back to one of the godfathers. He's got a great article. I reference it anytime I give a talk, but he basically, here they are. Here are the 5 different ones that he has like broken down through his career and what each one of them really, really means. But again, you have to know the nuances of these differences to be able to choose the correct path when you're mocking. And it creates it to be a little bit too technical. Just like Laravel, when you can say something like facade fake, right? You can say, you know, storage fake. You don't need to know that it's a spy or a mock or a pass-through or partial. You don't really need to know any of that stuff. You're just saying like fake it, right? And I think fake's a much more approachable word than double, but kind of to the point of the article, a fake, you know, does imply something, and Laravel does actually follow that, so it is a true fake. But I think for a test double library, double is still accurate, but which kind is kind of chosen for you underneath, unless of course you want to specify it, right? So I think lowering the barrier to entry, making it, again, a little more approachable, not only in the error messaging, but how you actually set them up, is a win, right? And it's also just tighter, right? Like I just want to be able to say, you know, double expects whatever done. I don't want mockery, : mock, and partial and all these things, and should receive once, and that's another like part of this. It's not just the terminology, it's also like, and, you know, expects versus should receive. I think this is another big gotcha, right? Like should receive, should have received versus expects. Like all of the terminology really is muddled, and I think a lot of people actually probably are using mockery incorrectly because of some of these, because they don't have this full, dense Martin Fowler written 25 test books, given, you know, dozens of testing talks. Like they don't have that background. They're just coming in and trying to write a test, and it's kind of not working out for them. And I think that's just a bad experience. That's really what this is all about. Let's see if Claude's made any more. Oh, okay, cool. All right. Architecture's sensible defaults tables say to unset mode defaults to loose, but M1 explicitly defers loose fabrication to M4. So in M1, what should test double 4 do if the caller never calls strict? Temporary strict default recommended. Require explicit, no implicit default at all in M1. Okay, Okay, so let's go away from the gripes for a second. Let's come over here and try to fill everybody in on what we're getting after here. We got anything in the chat? Okay, cool. All right, so I'll come back to the chat too. Looks like a couple quick things in there. Okay, so Claude, again, Claude AI, I talked to it, I gave it all my gripes, I iterated with it on some architecture for a little bit, and it gave me an architecture markdown document, which is now in the project, which is what Claude is working from currently. So let's see here. So what it's saying is the goal of the prompt was to effectively tell it to work through the first two milestones, what they called M0 and M1. But I think where it's getting stuck is it's saying that M1 says something, but then it defers it to M4. So a little bit of inconsistency there. So it's asking how we should proceed. So test double for foo class. Should it temporarily be strict as the default, and then we'll change it in M4? That seems to be what they recommend. Require explicit strict, no implicit default at all in M1 without strict, throws immediate on first method call matched or not, forcing every M1 test to write strict explicitly. Reverts to the real loose default once M4 lands. So M's are milestones. In fairness, I'm never going to release this until we get through all the milestones. So our answer here kind of doesn't matter. So let's just go with what Claude recommends. Because, again, we're probably going to power through these depending on how quick Claude cranks stuff out. So, yes. Yes, replace with real MIT text. Yeah, whatever. Go for it. Yeah, okay. Let's submit those. Some of the other questions that I actually asked there that I just hit enter through real quick. I actually have a package out there called Test Double that I wrote almost 10 years ago now, if we look, 9 years ago plus, which did achieve kind of this first gripe that I had, or not first gripe, the second gripe that we're talking about over here in our other terminal. So this too technical instead of mock spy sparse. I did write a double helper only that kind of abstracts all that away from you and it figures out the right thing to do. So this is already out there. As you can see, absolute no usage, no release. I just used it in a couple of my own projects years ago that were outside of Laravel. Now I use Laravel's, facades and fakes and so forth that I'm rarely creating mocks. But again, when I do, I get annoyed because it's just not as approachable as my surrounding Laravel testing stuff. So back to the gripes. I think that's kind of the final thing. Not easy to contribute. Because of its code base, again, nothing wrong with the way it's written. I think it's highly technical and a dense code base. Maybe that's a good thing to some people. But it's not approachable to contribute. Again, on live stream, I've tried to contribute over the years, and some things have landed. Some things haven't. Some of these things I have tried to put in before. Some of them I can't complete because of the exception messages, kind of for the reasons that I'm talking about now. Yeah, not easy to contribute. So there's a lot of legacy. So really what I'm saying here is I think it still supports PHP 8.1 again because it's been around so long. It has some cruft. That's not anyone's fault. That's not the maintainer's fault. But for wide adoption and kind of this drag, they still support old versions. So maybe they're not able to do some new things that are in PHP because they still need to support 8.1. So there's some legacy stuff in there. I think some things over the years, again, it's naturally evolved over the years, but some of these things like the exceptions and stuff, there's not really clear separation. So let's just say clear separation. I don't want to get into solid per se. But again, these are where some of these architecturally designed patterny things start to creep up. When you don't have this kind of clear separation, it's hard to know when you want to go in and contribute something where do I make this change? And again, this is a very technically dense domain, library. So I understand why it's this way, but I'm curious if I could make it not this way, right? I don't know if y'all can hear that. It is really raining here. I'm actually downstairs, but the exterior wall to my house is over here, so I can hear it. I can hear it like pattering. So anyway, yeah, it's just not easy to contribute to its legacy. And I think the final thing is just kind of like slow moving. Like, I think even when I did submit a PR, like, it took months for that to get merged. So yeah, again, in fairness, like a testing double library, like, it is probably relatively feature complete, like, once it's launched. So I understand there's not a need to like merge a lot or contribute a lot or whatever, but again, I think there's something here. Let's make sure this is still going. All right, still going. Says it's almost done thinking. Hopefully we don't have any rate limits. I think I'm just on like their basic pro plan or whatever. So let's map some of this out while we're like waiting on Claude. So really what I'm after here, and we kind of saw it, what I want to see is something more like test double for, you know, foo class, we could chain all this. So expects, you know, bar with, you know, baz, and then returns, whatever here. We can return, what is the next one? It's like quiz or something, quicks, I think. It's like the Latin, you know, foo bar baz. Anyway, I think it's quicks, qui maybe. So this is kind of like the library here, and we can see that it's a little more expressive. It doesn't start out like, so the same thing in mockery would be like mockery, you know, mock, foo. This might not even be exact, but you would say expects. Now again, I know to say expects, but I think a lot of people would write should receive, and I think if we go look at the documentation, you know, it would have that. They would write this, and then like technically equivalent would be once. That's what expects is a shorthand for. And then I think you do have with. I think they do have with, so that's synonymous. So you would have baz, and then you would say and returns, you know, quicks. I think this is functionally equivalent. So it's not just about being shorter. It's about being shorter, but also more expressive. So tefs double for foo class expects bar with baz returns qui is way more expressive in my opinion than like mockery mock should receive bar once with baz and returns. Like, they're both good, but the point is, in a modern, more expressive, like we're just tweaking the needle, just like 5%, just like 5% more in the right direction. Like the and returns is just strange. I don't even know why they would have ever said and. Like some of these, you don't say like, they don't have all these like filler words for each one of them, right? So again, the should receive, but then the shorthand once and with, but then back to like the longer and returns. Like some are very sentencey and some are just straight words. So like, I don't know, it's just, again, I call that symmetry. And I think that's kind of the final marker of like really, really good code is when it's symmetrical. And it's hard to get there. And not everybody cares about that. But I think, again, coming from kind of that Laravel DX experience being a top priority, things being kind of like human readable, I think the difference here is important. We'll just keep this document like flowing. So let's just break this out. All right. I'm hearing some stuff in the chat. Let's go chat. And then we need to check on Claude. Where's my chat window? All right, cool. Hey, Haas, how's it going? Have an unrelated question. When does the Fast Laravel Nightwatch episode? That is a good question. Honestly, probably never. Two reasons for that. One, kind of forgot about it. But two, actually, in doing the case study for Laravel News, I realized a more appropriate final video is probably talking about Laravel Cloud much more than Laravel Nightwatch. I kind of don't even remember exactly what I wanted to put in Nightwatch or what I would put in the fast Laravel course with Nightwatch. I guess it was kind of like a general performance kick, but that kind of doesn't feel like as strong now as like what I could do to talk about Laravel Cloud. And the reason I would probably swap it for Laravel Cloud is Laravel Cloud now offers some edge caching built in. There's not a lot of fine-grained control over it though, so like the things that I cover in the course are deeper than what Laravel Cloud currently offers, and as such you would want to stick with Cloudflare. But because edge caching is enabled by default in Cloud and cannot be disabled, there are some things you have to do to tweak it for Cloud to make sure that all the rules that are covered in the Fast Laravel course would still apply if you're hosted with Laravel Cloud. So for those reasons, Laravel Cloud is probably a much better final video to throw in that last section than to go back and figure out whatever I wanted to say about Laravel Nightwatch. Nightwatch would be good from like a request traffic expense kind of thing. But yeah, I don't know. Anyway, let's go check Claude, see what's going on. Okay. Claude is cranking away. All right. Build engine module, write test fixtures, write PHP unit test suite, add GitHub Actions workflow, run composer install, and PHP unit fix issues. One task complete. Okay, so it built the engine. We're gonna look at all this code in a minute, but it is cranking. All right, it's cranking away. I hope I don't hit it any rate limits. I normally don't hit any rate limits, but I'm also not like throwing it at a huge build me a mockery clone kind of task. So let's see here. Okay, cool. Another question. Whatever happened to that quote website you were building in public? I want to say something about cleaning. Whatever happened to the quote website? I've got a couple websites that have like quotes on them now. Do you mean like the retrajectory? This one? Anyway, I'm not sure which one you mean. You're welcome to message me privately on that. I wanted to use, the model. Yeah, the model on here. I wanted to use Fable, but apparently I specifically don't have access to it. I'm in the US, but I know some people got access, some people don't. I think it's probably like prioritized by the type of plan you have, and I just have the little $20 a month plan, not like the 100 multiple plans. So, oh, like the house cleaning site. Yeah, I think that's done. And no, it's not launched. It's not launched. They're still waiting. Anyway, I will say in general, a lot of the side projects that I've worked on stream, they don't really make it. It's like me like testing out an idea. Like even this is an example of that. Like I'm not launching anything here until like I can basically drop this library into my Laravel application and like use it instead of mockery. That's kind of my benchmark. So sometimes the benchmarks are pretty high. But yes, there was a local cleaning service site for the people that clean our own home. I was just trying to kind of like help them out, and it was a way to get familiar with AI and all that stuff. Like, gosh, that was probably like 18 months ago now. I don't think they ever launched it though. All right. Oh, here we go. 92%. Oh, hey, look. Hey, it resets at 140. Okay, so if we hit this, it basically, oh no, it's only 12. It's only 1. It wouldn't, I'd be stuck for 40 minutes. So we can do the GitHub Actions stuff ourselves though. So hopefully this sticks. We don't need Claude to do a lot of work once this is done. We're just gonna spend the rest of the time probably reviewing the code. So let me go back to the gripes. I feel like there was one more thing. I think there was one more thing I kind of wanted to say. So just looking at these two code samples, and you can tell me in the chat. Again, not a whole lot different. The main things to point out are, again, a lot of people use should receive, but not necessarily with once. And that effectively creates a very loose mock of what I would call, because it's saying it should receive, but not necessarily that it's expected or must receive. So again, I think a lot of people are probably using mockery wrong, or not as strict as they might think, simply because, again, that kind of like technical difference between the two. Anyway, so mockery does allow expect, I think. Expects or expect, I'm not sure. Pretty sure it's expect. So again, we can see here that this is pretty darn close. The only difference here really is our naming convention, instead of kind of a fun name of mockery. But, 15 years ago, you used more fun names, flicker, mockery, all that kind of stuff. You didn't necessarily use the domain technical name. But yeah, I also just want to abstract. The other main thing here, and we've talked about it up in the goals, is that I just want to abstract the difference between mock and spy and all these things. I don't want a new developer to have to really worry about that. Everything's just kind of a test double. And how you set up the expectations on it are what define it underneath of doing kind of the more technical behavior. So it kind of just abstracts it just a slight bit away from the user, which I think is fine. Again, if you want a super technical testing library, one exists, mockery. Just go use it, or even more technical than that, use PHP units, built-in mocking, which is even more technical. So there's a reason mockery won out. Like, it's doing some stuff right, and there are other things out there too. I think there's like fake with a PH, so PHAKE, fake. I've used them all over the years. Again, don't get me wrong, mockery is the best. This is like that last 10% of polish that like takes it from like good to great, right? Hopefully, anyway. That's the goal. So the goal is really like DX. Like, said simply, like the goal is DX. Like, just a high bar of DX. Everything from the exception messages that you see when you maybe didn't set something up correctly or the code didn't behave a certain way, abstracting some of the technicality. You can just say double and just get going, right? And you can dial things in strict as you work through the test, right? Because tests are code like anything else. Like, sometimes you want to do that first pass. And then again, because of those things, because of the improved DX, and hopefully the code architecture itself, that would make it easier and more fun to contribute to, which of course then would grow the library. So again, while nothing against mockery, I would feel better about using this. I don't know. I would like it more. So we'll see. Okay, we're doing something here. Oh wow, lots of stuff. Okay, stopping here as requested. Nothing in matches. Okay, so we're 95% of our limits now. Okay. Let's recap what it's done here. Okay, all done. Let me mark the last task complete. Okay, MO Bootstrap. We have Composer JSON, rewritten, MIT license, PHP 8 floor, 0 mandatory runtime dependencies. Awesome. Real MIT license text. The old one was mispasted Yahoo notice. Okay, whatever. Contributing thing, fine. CI workflows for 8.4 and 8.5 also, plus an allow failure 8.6 job. Okay, fair enough. Let me close the chat here so I can keep reading these. Oh, is 8.6 have nightly build? Oh, cool. Okay, I guess we are getting towards release. Remove the old mockery, wrapping, scaffolding, source helper, old tests. Yes, that's fine. Again, we're on like a V2 thing. Okay, so that was M1. It was just like bootstrapping the project. I see. Or sorry, that was M0, just bootstrapping the project. So core engine strict only. We have test double exceptions. We have reserve name collision. So we have all sorts of exceptions that it thinks it's going to throw. All plain message, runtime exceptions for now. No dependency on the engine. Okay. The engine has an enum, a double state, a method, expectation, proxy behavior. These are very, very technical names. We'll come up with these. We'll review these here in PHP Storm in a minute. Class generator, double control methods, a trait. Double, that's a facade. Okay, for the for and verify. That makes sense. Oh, is a facade the right word there? It's a static class. I could see that. And then reserve name collision checks. Okay, so yeah, we need to dive into that. 56 tests, 99 assertions, all green. Okay, judgment calls you didn't already resolve via the questions. Exceptions are plain strings, not yet diagnostic shaped. The docs test double exception constructor takes a diagnostic plus diagnostic renderer. That's M3 infrastructure. M1's just a string. Okay, that's fine. With uses plain value equality, not a matcher. Equals to matcher is M2. Wow, okay, we are storming out there. If for some reason I lose power, we'll pick up next week. Okay, flagged and a doc block. M3 will refactor. Okay, so basically it feels like all of these things are basically stuff that it's going to do in a future pass. Pass through and received are real reserved methods, but they throw not implemented. Totally fine. I don't know what M2 is. Part of me feels like if I wasn't 5% away from my usage limit, I would probably let it crank. But I think let's just go look at the code for now. So let's get on out of here. What is this? By proceeding, you accept all responsibilities. What's going on? Oh, it's... I've noticed this in their full screen re-render that sometimes if you do it like while you scrolled or something, like it leaves some artifacts after you exit. I'm sure they're working on that. Okay, so it deleted source helpers and all my tests, fine. Let's kind of go through git add -p here to see what's going on. Okay, so we got the new modern PHP unit thing. It cleaned up the license. A modern human-friendly PHP test double library. Great, thanks. All right, cool. So it just dropped everything under test double. I don't have like a... It's not about vanity so much, but I do have a lot of other packages. So I do feel like the JMac testing was a better top level domain from like a namespacing perspective with my other packages. I'll come back to that. All right, so that's fine. And then let's git add. So this is kind of like project setup. Let's just add all this. This is going to be a lot of stuff. And then Scratchpad swap is because this is still open. So let's go close the Scratchpad. Let's get back to this now. Okay, .github are the tests. Let's go ahead, or the CI. So let's go ahead and do git add .github. Okay, cool. I think we can remove the Claude prompt now because, whoops, because we already used that. So let's drop that. Let's add the contributing because that's part of the kind of setup, the bootstrapping. The Scratchpad's ours, so that really can just get dropped in the README file. And then I want to keep architecture because we're going to keep cranking here in a second. So let's do this. Git commit -m. We'll call it M1. We'll just follow what the architecture says. So what did we say here? M1 was basically just like initial engine. This will get part of a huge PR that just kind of redoes V2. So let's go ahead and push this up. Git push origin head. Probably needed a -f there. So let's do a git open. Okay, so this is out under test double V2. I don't know if this is set up to run. It is not. Will it run on a pull request? Let's create a draft pull request just for V2 right now. I just want to see the GitHub Actions run. Okay, cool. All right, so they are running. So let's let those run in the background and see if they're working. I'm going to go ahead and bring up PHP Storm. We'll keep cranking on this for a minute. Let's see what else we got here. Anybody else in the chat? Nope, just Haz's stuff. All right, cool. Thanks, Haz. Okay, so carrying on, let's get a feel for what it actually built us. So let me get the working directory, and we will drop this into PHP Storm once it decides to take off into outer space. Oh, here we go. This passed. All right, let's see what this actually does. What does this actually do? It runs the tests. Cool. I'm curious what these tests look like, but they all run. Beautiful. So it runs on 8.4.8.5.8.6. 8.6 is arguably not really needed, but nice clean little setup here. Let's make a new project from existing files. Man, it is storming here. I didn't even know it was supposed to rain today. All right, we got this test double library. There it is. Create. All right, let's let this fire up so we can start looking at some code. I think we might have Claude refactor that namespace in the background, but we'll come back to that in a second. Where's my code? So slow. I'm gonna replace this iMac this year. This thing it's really dragging lately. All right, once this all loads up, we'll look at some code. Okay, so in the background, let's have Claude fix this. I don't know why that's also like, so let's call this like JMac testing. I think the test double class with a test double facade is just dumb. So let's go back to putting it that way. And then let's change this to this without all those. And then we'll go back and have Claude kind of apply that everywhere. I'm sure PHP Storm could have done that, but hey, I've got 5% left, so let's let it get after it. So let's let it do that while we're looking at what it wrote. All right, I updated Composer JSON to change the namespaces for the PSR for auto loading. Can you use the new name and update all classes and tests to reflect this accordingly? All right, cool. Let's let it do that. We'll get back down in here. So we got the engine and we got the exceptions. I don't think we're too worried about all the exceptions. I have no clue what these crappy little icons are. I probably need to update PHP Storm. Again, I have not been on the iMac in weeks now. But I would think let's start with this test double facade as it talked about. Okay, we've got an empty constructor, which is kind of lame, but I'm assuming it left it there for future ims. So we've got 4. So when you call test double 4, so let's go back to our scratch pad. So when you call this test double 4, it's going to come in here, it's going to make a new class generator, generates it based on the target. So if you say foo class, it's going to generate you a test double for that class, I would assume. We can go deeper down in there later. We're going to make a new double state. A new double state derived from label. Sorry, hold on, stream. I've got like something dripping over here with all this rain. Hold on. All right. Yeah. Apparently it's like crazy monsoon outside and it's blowing like directly into the door, which I guess was slightly cracked, and so that created a drip, a flood inside my home. Okay, cool. Anyway, put a towel down, so it should be all right. I didn't realize it was so backed up though. It was starting to drip like down the stair over the landing. Anyway, all right, where are we? Okay, so let's see here. What is this? What was this? Derive label. So target. Oh, okay. I assume the label is like the visual description of that. Again, we can put a bunch of debugging in here. This is the okay. Let's take a step back. This is kind of the downfall of not downfall. I'm trying to think of the right word here. This is kind of that, like, I'll call it a dependency loop. I think there's probably a better word for all this. But like, this is kind of that dependency loop that once you start effectively vibe coding, like all this stuff, you don't have it in like your mental model, right? Like it's not in your head what any of this stuff is. Now some would argue no big deal, just keep having AI crank on it. Someday, I don't think we're there yet. Someday I think that that's fine. But to me, as someone who, you know, would qualify themselves at least as an experienced developer. I mean, I've been writing PHP for, 25 years now plus, probably closer to 30. I mean, it was PHP when PHP was still CGI modules in the libraries. I mean, that's when I started using it, like V3, I think, or earlier. Anyway, the point is like, double state and derive label, and so some of these things aren't lining up. Like they need better names, and I think we identified that reading Claude's summary already. I don't know what this is doing, like as easily as I understood what generate class generator target does. Now, while that's still kind of a crappy name, like this line I kind of understood what it did. What is the double state? No clue. Derive label for what? No clue. None of that's in here. State just gets tracked in states. This is an array, so it's dereferencing a weak map, which, some of this is already kind of dense, right? So again, this can all happen later. Like it's got 3 more milestones to go through, but that's kind of why I think right now is going to be hard to kind of like reason about the code. But I'm still going to need to do that at some point. So AI is going to generate, let's just say, thousands of lines of code for me, and then I am still going to have to go back and kind of make sure that I can follow this all the way through, so I still am its author. Because right now I'm not this thing's author. This is a PHP package generated by Claude put out into the wild. Like that's no bueno in my opinion. So this is going to need a human touch at some point, and that's kind of the double-edged sword of having it generate quote unquote everything, right? So let's go back. Oh my gosh, this is why I said dangerously skip permissions. This hasn't even started yet because I had to say like 6 things. Okay, anyway. All right, so it should be updating that. We'll be able to recommit this, make sure it all passes. So let's just go look at the class generator real quick. I'm just curious. So generate says if the class doesn't exist or the interface doesn't exist, then see you later. Make a new reflection class if it's final, all these things, all these detailed things that you need to know about to actually make a test double of the class that you said to make. Now, I do see something right away, and again, this could come later on, but this string target, you might just want like a quote-unquote dummy object, right? And if you just want like this dummy object, is this now nullable? Can you pass a null in here and then it does something else? I think that might be a later milestone, but I do know Mockery supports that. It supports just passing in a quote-unquote named mock with a string. So I don't know if generate handles that or not. My guess is no, given the fact that it tries to reflect it immediately. So there's stuff in here. In fairness, these classes aren't very big so far, so that's kind of nice. I don't know what this internal tag is. We'll come back to that. From my architectural docs, though, like what this is basically doing is we say foo, right? We say foo, so it's going to go make a foo class, and it's going to extend that class underneath to make sure that it matches all the type hints and so forth, so you can still use this doubled object, this test object, everywhere your actual implementation code does. So that's kind of how that's like the magic of all of this underneath. It's that simple. It's really just extending the class, having a child class that becomes a dynamic fake in kind of Laravel's terms, right? And the problem with that, though, or the challenges with that, are really this next thing. So in generate, you basically have to make sure that you don't have like naming collisions. So like, for example, if we go back here, if your actual foo class has an expects method on it, well, now you've got this like crazy call loop naming collision thing that's happening, right? So that's kind of what this does, is before it goes and puts methods on the class, it reflects to see if there's anything overlapping that would create a conflict, because that creates like undefined behavior, right? Like you can still define your own expects, but if it's not going to call it the way you call it, and you're going to get like this runtime thing, you're not going to get a top level message right away that says, oh, foo class had expects on it, but we need that to test it. So that's kind of where this like reserved name collision comes from, right? So that's what it's doing. That's also why you need like a super lightweight footprint for this test double class, is because the more and more of these methods that you have, the more collision probability, that's there, more possibility of collision. So, oh my God, Claude, just rename it. Anyway, I think we'll stop here in a minute. Let's let it finish renaming. We'll push this up. The last thing I want to look at is, where was that? There was one more kind of like, what is double state? I was kind of curious what double state was. So target and label, these are read only. So this is just like a little DTO. It's just a little data object that's tracking. I'm assuming, let's see what the comment says. Holds everything about one double. The target is created for, its display label, its mode. What's the mode? Every expectation registered. Okay, that's fine. I don't like the name double state here. I get why they called it that, but what is the mode? What are the different modes? Okay, loose, strict, and pass-through. So basically, loose, spy, strict, mock, pass-through is partial. Yeah. I feel like at this level, we don't need to make those like our own terms. I think when we get this far down into the mode, we should probably say something like spy, mock, or partial. Again, I'm gonna let it, like loose is only reachable for M4. So again, some of these things are defined for the future. So we're kind of in like this in-between state where I don't want to start refactoring anything just yet. But this makes a little more sense now. Proxy behavior, that probably gets pretty tech. Oh, okay, it's proxying the calls and recording them. Okay, so this is what actually intercepts and records the calls that you would be sending to the underlying thing. Okay. Double control methods. Oh, it's a trait. Why is this a trait? Why wouldn't it just be on the double itself? Where's this trait used? Double control methods. Just the class generator. I don't know why you would make it a trait, but again, in between state, maybe it's gonna do it in M2, I don't know. Okay, did it fix everything? Cool. Let's also, okay, so let's do git add -u, whoops, -u for all those things. Let's just call it renamespace. We'll go ahead and git push that up. Git push -u origin head. Let's track it. All right, cool. Now we can just say git push. Next, let's bring in Pint. Let's just do a little bit more house cleaning or keeping. So not PHP, composer require dash dash dev Laravel pint. All right. Vendor bin pint. Okay, multi-arrow, PHP doc align, concat space, all that's pretty standard. Feels good to me. Git add dot, no, not dot, dash u again. Let's say pint. Let's also have Claude add, let's say, can you, whoops, please create a GitHub Actions workflow that will check for any syntax errors as well as a test run of Laravel pint. So vendor bin pint. All right. Let's let it do that in the background. I think we're in a pretty good place here. Let me check the chat. I heard it a little minute ago. It was probably about the flood that happened in my house. Where did James? Yeah, yeah. Haas, sorry. Had to run away for a second and make sure my house wasn't flooding. Like I said, crazy rainstorm here. So like I don't know. I'm in the basement, so I can't see it. But it seemed like the wind was pretty strong, so it was blowing all the rain against the front door, which I guessed was. It was closed, but it was cracked just enough that it was like running underneath it, through it. Anyway, let's let this finish. We'll push this up for syntax and style. Local setup, cool. Yeah, lint sounds great. PHP parallel lint installed via setups tools. Okay, fine, whatever, I don't care. Oh, it's done. All right, cool. 21 seconds. Awesome. Git add .github lint workflow git push git open. All right. Actions. All right, let's see those two things run. What is that? Why are two of them running? Oh, did it change? Must have changed to run on the thing. Anyway, let's see that all this is green, and then I think we'll slow down there. I want to go look while we're waiting. Let's go look at what architecture M2 is. I also probably ought to commit this. Where are the milestones? Probably down at the bottom, I suppose. Let's get all the way down here. There we go, M2. Matcher contract. M3 diagnostics pipeline. What time is it? I'll go just a little bit longer. I think M2 doesn't seem crazy. I think let's push it on. Let's push Claude on to do M2 real quick while we're sitting around. Claude. Actually, too, and also like our usage limit resets in like 10 minutes. So I don't know. Let's keep cranking. Let's keep cranking. Okay. We completed M0 and M1. Can you review the what is this called? Architecture. No. Copy. Oh my goodness. Why is this not copying? Something's wrong with my setup here. Where is this? This is, what is this called? There was something where you could like copy the local path. There we go, copy path reference. There we go. Whatever. And proceed with M2. Oh, I forgot to dangerously skip. Whoops. Whatever, we'll just say yes 100 times. Okay, so M2 is, we said that M2, did I break something? I feel like I might have. I don't know why the highlighting's not working anymore. I feel like I've added something to this file I shouldn't have. Let's hit Command Z. Oh, I see. Oh, I somehow added a code fence. All right, whatever. Anyway, M2, matcher contract. So what the matcher is going to do inside of like something like Mockery is exactly what we see here. You have this test match any type and that and specific and all that kind of stuff. So this is like, let's go back to our little scratch pad. So it's like in here you could basically say like test match any, and you would say like string or something like that. I don't know. It might be string. It might be something else. So these are called matchers. It just allows for a little bit of flexibility inside of these types of things and other places. And again, we need to have feature parity with the other, test double libraries or test object libraries, whatever you want to call them. So that's kind of what it came up in the brainstorming session. Again, I don't expect this is a high level of effort, so I'm hoping that the like 4% of my usage limit is still available. I was coding this morning, so I don't think it killed all 90%, but we'll just see how far we can get. Because again, it sounded like it reset here in like 4 or 5 minutes, so I think we can live with it. Again, I also don't like the name here. I feel like, I feel like match or just going back up to this like test double. If we're gonna have this quote unquote facade, like I feel like everything should just be off of it. I don't want to have to learn 7 facades for one library. That's fine when you're like the Laravel framework and you've got, all sorts of different features and then you're this huge web framework. But when you're like a very specific test object library, I don't want to have to learn 7 facades for that surface area. Like the ratio's off in my mind. So I think I'm honestly willing to probably just have it put all these on test double. I don't want this other test match. Or I just want it to say match any. That's more human readable. I don't know. Again, for those that are here in the chat, let me know what you think. Put it all under test double. Do we give it a better, shorter name like match? And then of course you would just, import the use statement. Let me know what you think. It looks like it cranked through that pretty quickly though. If so, then we're just gonna keep moving on down the line. Okay, we're just gonna say awesome, wrap this up in a commit by me. I've noticed that sometimes it does a lot of its own committing as M2 introduce matchers. All right. What is the next architecture thing? So M3 is diagnostics pipeline. Diagnostics render, the thing that it mentioned before. Plain text render, golden file test harness. I don't know what golden file test harness means, but whatever. Top priority within this milestone, unsatisfied expectations, call correlation features, see correlating. It directly addresses the most common real-world failure mode and shouldn't be deferred to later polish pass. Wow, okay. Did it just do git add stat? Oh, okay, cool. No, that's fine. Let's let this finish. I think we're going to crank it on to M2. Great. Let's move on to M3 from the architecture.md. Let's see if I can get through those. I'm just going to let it keep going. How many modes do we have? We've only got 6. Oh, well, 6 is the docs. Oh wow. Yeah, okay, we're gonna let it keep. Yeah, I got some time. Let's keep going. I think this is if my usage resets in 6 minutes. Let's have it do 4 and 5. Whoops. Yes, proceed. All right, while it's doing that, let's go up. Okay, so all these are passing. Great. Let's go to the pull requests. So I kind of jump back and forth sometimes in the thoughts, and that's just the curse of live streaming. But what's funny is that if we need to of course use this thing. But what's funny, impressive. Again, here's kind of the dichotomy of it all. What is just mind blowing, good or bad, is that basically in what 50 minutes. We've recreated Mockery, a 15-year-old, highly dense PHP library. You know, that's the de facto library for testing objects when you write tests for PHP. It's just kind of, I don't know, it's nuts. And it's 2,000 lines of code, 46 files. Again, a lot of which we could probably clean up. But yeah, where's our? Did it push? Oh, we haven't pushed anything yet. Crap. I wanted to get out on GitHub and see the differences, but we haven't pushed anything. No wonder. Okay, we hit our limit. Does it tell us how long the limit is? Stop and wait for limit to reset. It resets at 1:40 p.m. New York time. It is 1:36. We're going to wait 4 minutes. So we will close this out. We're going to do a git push. And we'll go look at what it did for M2. We'll get back into Claude. And we will... Let's go back here. So when we've reset here in a few minutes, we'll let it crank on that. Let's look at this. I want to see what it did for the matchers. Okay, so now we have a new method expectation. It's rewriting all of its big doc blocks. That's fine. Okay, so we have the any matcher matches any, describe any, explain match null. Okay, so it seems like we have this new matching domain, let's call it, inside. And there's all sorts of matchers. There's an any matcher, an equal matcher, the top level parent matcher or interface. Okay, interface, fine. Predicate matcher. Test that predicate. Oh, predicate's a callback. Okay, fair enough. Callback predicate. Predicate. What a dense name. I want to give all of this. I want to give all of this like a base code review when it's done with its things. Test match. What's a test match? Test match. Final class. Ooh, I'm gonna blow some minds with that one. What is the point? Oh, test match. This is what we said could be. Yeah, this is what we said could just go up to test double, which I'm feeling like it should. I mean, it's an empty constructor. It's not, again, I want to let it get through everything. But going back, nobody chimed in. But going back over here, I kind of feel like this is just like test double any. I think that's like the V1 of the V2, if you know what I mean. I think I'd rather it just be that for now. So we can have that refactor later, no big deal. Let's say a type matcher. So we're saying it's a string and it's got to be an instance of actual, has to be an instance of this type. Can you pass in string? Okay, so it as printf. So, okay, so explain mismatch. What is describe? Get debug type. All right, and then value formatter. What's a value formatter? Renders a single value for use inside matcher's describe. Final class value formatter. Public static function describe. Match true. If it's a string, int, float, or whatever, then we just var export it. Oh. I see what it, okay. What's get debug type? I've never seen that. Let's get back into PHP Storm. I'm curious. What is get debug type? I've never, is that something they've added or is that a raw method? It is. It is a method. What is this? Get the type? I have never used that before. Today I learned, right? Since 8.0. Resource. So this is like a built-in, it's a built-in PHP function that returns int, float, bool, string, array, null, or the name of the class, an anonymous class, the type of resource that it is. I don't even know what a closed resource is. Wow. So if it's an array, it prints the array. If it's any of those, it var exports the value itself. Otherwise, it assumes that it's a class or a resource, in which case fall back on its color. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like that could probably just be a helper method. I don't know if it needs to be its own class, but whatever, I get it. Okay, cool. Have we reset the clock on our rate limit? Oh, yes, we're 141. All right, let's do it. Okay, we should be past our rate limit. All right, so let's go back. What it was M3 again? M3, wait, no. Is it M3 or M4? No, we're M3, the diagnostic pipeline. Okay, this one might be a little bit large. I think M3 and M4 are going to be a bit large. So we may usage limit it up in the way of doing this, but let's let it take a crank here, right? So this is one of those core features. So we'll put this in the background while we're kind of talking about this. But I want to make sure, since we didn't skip dangerously, I want to make sure that we can kind of see this. I disabled I went into focus mode or whatever, do not disturb mode, so I'm not getting the Claude alerts that normally pop up when it needs to ask me a question. So let's just keep an eye on it in the corner there. The diagnostic pipeline goes back to kind of, if we go back to our scratch pad, it goes back to this better exception messages. That's what this goal is kind of targeted, or that's what this milestone is targeted at, is this goal. So instead of, right now we just have this string message. It's what it said for us when it completed M1, right? The initial engine. When it completed that, basically what it was saying was all the exceptions just dump out as a string. Well, we don't want that. We want a richer exception message that's going to let us know kind of like what happened. It's going to give us, to Claude's terminology, a diagnostic of like what's going on. And that kind of needs an entire pipeline, apparently. What that needs is, because right now when you have a match, we saw where it like gets tracked in the calls, and then you're going to run your code, and at the end of the test, it's going to verify these calls got called. So it has a recording of like all the calls that happened while your code ran, your code under test ran, and then it's going to verify those that they all matched up. When they don't match up, instead of just this generic, as we said before, kind of mockery technical message stack trace that PHP unit ends up bubbling and throwing out, ideally we're going to get a more suggestive human readable message. Now, it's easy to make the exception message human readable. What's not so easy is this diagnostic piece. The diagnostic piece is what gets us to that place of suggestive, where Laravel, for example, the assert database has, right? If you pass it in an array and there's a similar record or something, like it kind of tells you, oh, this is the similar record. That requires, again, what Claude in its architecture is calling diagnostics. So that's what we're trying to build right now, or that's what Claude is building for us now. We haven't written a single line of code in 50 minutes. So let's see here. Test double block says diagnostic refactor was deferred to M3. Should that refactor cover every exception that extends it, 7, or just the 2 rich diagnostics that architecture actually describes in prose, leaving the simpler setup time errors as plain string messages for now? Okay, so apparently in our architecture, I only gave it 2 examples. Again, this talk that I had with Claude over the weekend, from my phone when I was architecting this and probing it with questions and asking it to analyze Mockery's code base and all this kind of stuff. Like, I basically had this conversation with it, but I only gave it 2 examples. But now it's saying, oh, well, you've actually got 7 exceptions. Do you want to break them all out, or do you want to do just the 2 with rich diagnostics? What I am unclear on is, do the other 5 actually have... Do they actually have real-world examples where they would need diagnostics? I don't know, but it's recommending to do the full migration. So again, for now, we're just going to let Claude be in charge. Claude's driving. I'm just its co-pilot. Again, I've written no code. I'm along for the ride. I don't even know what's going on right now. Again, fun and scary at the same time. All right, let's see here. What do we got going on? User answered question. Yes, I did. Okay, so keep cranking there, little buddy. Okay, so what else do we have here? So call correlated features, see correlate. Let's go read this. Let's go read this. Just to kind of like follow along with Claude. So motivated by the single most common real failure, expects bar with BOZ, never fires because the actual code under test, bar BOZ, a case typo, a stale variable, wrong value, and the verify failure message, no hint that bar was ever called with anything. This is deliberately not the same mechanism as the closest candidate diffing, okay? The closest candidate diff is a heuristic. It picks the first configured expectation whose arguments don't line up and calls it similar, okay? Which is a judgment call. This is not that. Double state already records every call. We talked about that. Made against double regardless of whether it matches anything. So was this method called at all with something else is a plain fact already sitting in the call log, not an inference. General principle, exact correlation, same method name gets stated as a fact. Anything requiring a similarity judgment gets phrased as speculation. These should read differently. Okay, that's fair. Okay, so paraphrasing this dense paragraph, basically what it's saying is when it's giving out this suggestive message, it's just defining some rules about what it states. So if you defined foo with bar and it got called with a capital B BOZ instead of the lowercase b BOZ, then it's going to give us this kind of like exact correlation, same method name, right? It's going to give us kind of this more exact suggestive message of like, look, you called it with this other thing, not that. That's a fact, is basically what it's saying. If it's anything else, multiple arguments, you call a different method instead of foo, all that stuff, like fine. Okay, let's see. Claude's plan, ready to code. Yes, we are. Yes, and use auto mode. Yes, please, go for it. Auto mode on. I don't even know what that means. Shift tab to cycle. I like the word auto mode. Go for it. I like your thinking. So unsatisfied expectation. Okay, so we're going to get a new expectation. We're going to get a new expectation where it will know that it has these things. It has descriptions, expected, min, max, all that kind of stuff. All right, let's see Claude's plan. Create diagnostics module, value objects, render. Okay, cool. Refactor, test double exception plus 7 subclasses to use the diagnostic pipeline. All right, fine. Wire call correlation into test double verify. Build golden file, test harness. What the heck is a golden file? What is this? What is a golden file? It's a verified baseline file that acts as the expected output. So it's a snapshot. When a program runs, it actually outputs Its actual output is compared to the golden file. So it's basically like an expectation snapshot. Is that what we're saying here? Is that what a golden file is? I haven't heard that term in a long time. Like I knew what it was, but it was just kind of like I didn't know what it meant. So anyway. Well, let's let this crank. It seems to be going relatively quickly. My guess is these other ones will be even faster. So if it's already on the second step out of 5, it should be there pretty quick. All right, so architecture. Okay, so yeah, see, it's already on the third one. Let's go back to architecture. Let's see what M4 might be. So M4 is modes. This is the loose pass-through versus all that stuff. Again, let's just keep cranking. I've got another 10 or 15 minutes. So at some point I have to go get my girls from daycare, so I can't code forever. All right, how we doing here? Couple people in the chat. Cool. All right. Oh, we're up to 100 viewers. Wow. Thanks, everybody. Who's in here? Give me some stuff in the chat. If I got 100 people out there, give me some. 100 eyeballs on this. Let's get some chat, people. Tell me some stuff while we're waiting. All right, we'll let this finish. We'll run usage and see where we are. But given that we've churned through almost 50,000 tokens, my guess is that I'm probably already halfway over my usage limit. Building golden file test harness. So I think what it means by golden file, in my opinion, are fixtures. Fixtures and snapshots. What it's doing is it's saying, okay, when you throw this exception, this should be like your huge output. That's my guess. My guess is I would have called that fixtures, but whatever, snapshots. It's backfilling some tests. Okay, cool. See, there you go, test fixtures. See, we're seeing a fixtures directory right here. So that proves that its golden files are snapshots or fixtures. That's the term it's kind of using. Yeah. So it has to make real classes in order to be able to do some kind of assertions and so forth in it. So yeah, if we go, yeah, here's your more fixtures. Yeah, see, test double. Yeah, there you go. That's what it's referring to. We're gonna reformat a lot of that. I wouldn't do it that way. I like the fixtures part, but I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't put them under here this way. I would move these back top level as fixtures. My guess is this fixtures class probably has to get auto-loaded though. Yeah. Yeah, naming collision allows. I see what it's doing. There's kind of like fixtures and then there's kind of like snapshots. I see why it's done those two different ways and gave them two different words. Okay, it's done. Let's see what it said. Okay, new diagnostics. Cool. Top priority feature shipped. Pat yourself on the back, Claude. Jeez. All right, so expected 1 times called 0 times. Okay, so that's another thing. We're going to continue to refine this, but like, I don't want all that parenthesis crap. Just like Laravel, throw string plural on there. You should know if it's times or time, right? Like just those little touches. I want this to have, if we're going to go through all this effort, not like it's a lot of effort, we've only spent an hour, but I just want this to be clean, super clean. There's no chance at success unless this is just like the DX. That is this thing's selling point. This DX has to be so smooth that it warrants using over the de facto library, right? Like that's a high bar, right? I'm under no misconceptions that I'm just gonna like blow Mockery out of the water. There is no feature issue with Mockery. Again, praise to Mockery. I've used it for a long time. These are just those little touches though that I've tried to contribute to core and they're not getting in there. So like at this point, spending 50 minutes to have Claude build another one seems to be the better path. Anyway, So there's some stuff that I think should be done here. I don't know why I keep getting this message. Anyway, full exception migration. Okay, golden file test harness. So basically, it's talking about to regenerate fixtures. Oh, okay, interesting. We'll come back and have a chat about that later. Do they have usage? Yes. Current session limit. I'm only 11%. Okay, cool. We're only at 11% after all that. All right, cool. How do we escape, I guess? Yeah, okay, cool. So let's carry on. Awesome. Or you know what? To avoid usage, let's commit this ourselves. So let's do into test double. So let's run vendor bin pint. Should be clean because it's probably part of it now. So git add source and tests. All right, git commit dash m. Let's call this, was that M3 or M4? I think that was M4, wasn't it? No, that was M3. M3 diagnostics pipeline. All right, git push. Awesome. Carry on to M4. All right, so M4 are the modes, okay? And we talked about already some potential refactoring that could happen here. But I want to go back and look at the M3 stuff. But M4 modes, what I mean by modes is if we go way up to their test example, here we go. So when you say test double for book repository, the initial mode is going to be loose, okay? Now in Mockery, you kind of get around all of this because you have to say mock or spy or whatever. You at least have to choose between those two. This library is not necessarily going to make you choose. It's going to figure it out for you based on the expectations or allows that you say farther down, right? So for those reasons, it has to know these modes, and we saw that represented in the enum earlier under mode when we were kind of digging around. Now I think underneath we should probably go back to the technical names, spy, whatever. But the mode itself is inferred. And so this is kind of just a tiny bit of DX here where like, I think that breaks down just a little bit of the barrier to entry. Like, I don't know if I'm new to testing, especially with using testing objects that like, do I need to mock? Do I need to spy? Do I need to pass through? Is it a partial? Like, is it strict? Do I ignore the missing? Like, all these things that you can chain on with Mockery, but you don't even know about because you like just started. So the easiest thing to do is just to be able to say, hey, just give me a double of this class, right? Like that's where all of this started 9 years ago. Just double this class. Give me a test object of this class. Start there and let the code kind of figure out the rest of the mode. You could say it up here. We're gonna do that. You could say that up here by like adding on strict or partial, all the things just like you can with Mockery. If you know right away and you're a deep tester with a lot of knowledge, cool. Do it that way. But I think on the surface, being able to just say test double for and your class that you're doubling, that's kind of the baseline, right? Which is easier approach baseline. So that's what we're going for. That's what M4 is doing. It's going to kind of like divide those up a lot better. While we're waiting on M4 to crank out, let's go see the code on GitHub that was actually written. So we're up to 81 files now. M3 diagnostic pipeline, everything's still passing, great. These all run very quickly, very nice. Very nice. All right. And then let's look at this diagnostic pipeline. Okay, before we look at all the stuff that was added, let's go look in here. Okay, we've got a new method expectation, has a minimum calls, okay? And test double. Before test double just called the string for describe. but it now uses named arguments to pass in a lot more information. And this information is then used to build a much better exception, much more human readable, much more suggestive exception, which was our top goal of this library. So M3 is basically putting a big fat checkbox theoretically on our primary goal for building this. So that was just written with 11% of my Claude usage, session usage. Okay, and then so basically so instead of getting this sprintf, they now call a corresponding new self, call limit exceeded diagnostic. Okay. Now my computer science brain is pausing here, and it's getting a little bit. What I see when I see this is a code smell. And I'm pretty sure it's called something like parallel class hierarchies. We can look that up here in a second. What the smell of parallel class hierarchies is normally an object, an intermediate object that's kind of waiting to be born, right? That's kind of the resolution to this. But going back a second while we're waiting on Claude, whoops, hopefully, let's make sure we don't have to say yes for anything. Oh, we do. Okay, hold on. Time out. We'll come back to the design pattern smell. The architecture requires mandatory provenance. I don't even know what that word means. Tagging on every fabricated object. Hold on. Built-in microphone. All right, hopefully you can still hear me and see me okay. Let's go full screen. Let's go full screen me. Hold on a second. Oop. Cancel. All right, hopefully you can still hear me okay. I think my camera went out. I still haven't figured out why, but for some reason my camera claims it overheats. It is not hot whatsoever. If I turn it off and back on, it is fine. But for some reason it has overheated. So we're gonna give it a minute. All right, we'll turn it back off in a second. All right, let's read through this. Hopefully you can still hear me okay. Architecture requires mandatory provenance tagging on every fabricated object. So if anything ever inspects one, the message explains it's a stand-in. How should that tagging surface? I don't even know how to answer this question. I don't even understand the question. Label suffix recommended appends a marker like auto-fabricated loose stand-in to the fabricated doubles state label at creation time. Every exception message already interpolates state labels. So this makes the provenance. I gotta go freaking read the definition. I mean, I've heard this word, but I don't understand the way that they're using it. Shows up. Constructor static parameter. Expose it as an optional parameter callers could theoretically override, e.g. a static setter. I understand what it's asking me at a high level. I think it's saying that when we make these assumptions, that it needs to kind of tag it somehow. All right, so let's say yes. Let's just, again, let's stick with the habit of choosing Claude's recommendations. All right, people are still here, so I'm assuming that you're hearing me okay. Okay, so first, define provenance. Provenance, chronology of ownership, custody, provenance, birthplace. Wow. Not a word I use very often. Again, I knew what I've seen the word, of course. It's not a word I use very often, so I did not quite get its usage. Okay, going back to the code smell that my little computer science brain sees here. Look at this. Call limit exceeded diagnostic is what is instantiated inside of the call limit exceeded exception. Now my guess is if we go to invalid double target exception, we're going to see an invalid double target diagnostic. And that proves my point of the smell. So let's see if I'm right. There we do. So we have that. So the issue here is that we've basically taken what's in here and we've kind of like deferred it somewhere else into all of this parallel class hierarchy. And so what that means is anytime we make an exception, we also have to make a diagnostic class that corresponds to it. And that is a smell, because anytime you create one class, you actually create two. And we see if you keep using that pattern that your code becomes like exponentially larger, right? If you had another parallel class hierarchy, then every 1 is 3 and every 1 is 4 and every 2 is 8, and it just gets nuts. So let's go look parallel, geez, class hierarchies. Why they are bad. Yep, fragile code, shotgun surgery, tight couple. Shotgun surgery, oh my gosh, I remember that from Fowler's refactoring. Shotgun, I used to love that. Shotgun surgery. How to fix them. Composition. Instead of making classes inherits from each other, give one class an object to the other class, right? So this is in a situation where like when you make or throw one of the exceptions, oh yeah, do it, Claude, sorry. So when you make or throw one of these exceptions, you would kind of just do so by passing it in. So a little bit of delegation there, you could say. Combine them, okay. Use other patterns. So you got a bridge pattern we could use. So there's all sorts of things we could do. That's a Claude refactor for down the road. But yeah, I think that's why I didn't immediately go look at these. We can see here that there's the parallel. Everything else is a test. So basically, if this diagnostic thing was maybe like, let's say just the renderer, which is an interface. I don't even know how often that's used. And then we have this top level diagnostic interface class, which does nothing, question mark, strange, implements, again, this might be placeholders for like M4 or M5, so I don't want to reach into it too much. That's why we're not refactoring yet, but basically these things, they all just call renderer. So in my mind, I feel like the exceptions should just call diagnostic renderer, and then it kind of knows how to render itself, right? Because all of these just call their underlying bit. So one of these classes is like just, you can see how like some of these classes are like not, this should just get built by the renderer, I feel like. I'd rather, in my opinion, I would rather have a large renderer than like parallel class hierarchies. That's really kind of the bottom line. Anyway, let's let Claude keep going here. We'll see what, all right, we got that. Everything's passing. Speaking of everything's passing, I'm curious, if we go over to V2, the workflows. Okay, it's on any branch push or pull request. All right. So this will ultimately probably say main or master or whatever it's still called. Again, this is a 9-year-old repo, so yeah, it's still called master. No big deal. Yeah, cool. All right, what's it cranking on here? So we're still on the loose stuff, right? We're on M4. M4 is kind of the last thing, I think. M4 modes is probably where I want to stop, because this PHP unit integration is like, A, I feel like it's pretty lightweight, and B, I'd probably want to refactor a lot of stuff before we start integrating with PHP unit. That might be like a next week thing. I think what I would want to do is refactor this on my own. I don't feel like that makes for a very good stream of me like dialing in the code. I think a before and after diff makes a good stream, but not like 2 hours of me scrolling through this code to clean up names and so forth, right? At least I don't think so. All right, It is cranking. So yeah, I think M5 will work on next week, paired with a little bit of a review of like the code refactor that I did. And that would be things like the parallel class hierarchy. That would be things like some of the naming, dialing in these fixtures, like in maybe reorganizing those. Just a lot of like code organization, right? Like I appreciate the 4 pillars here, but that might not be the direction I want to go. We also talked about like how maybe matcher could come back up higher, right? The matches describe some of the stuff, or not matcher, which one is it? Type match. I feel like type match, all this could just go back up here to this test double. I feel like test double doesn't belong under engine. I think that could go top level. So that's like that should really be your entry point, right? Again, thinking about this is our third goal, right? Is that it's not easy to contribute. I want it to be easier to contribute. I want when you come in, the top level file is test double, right? Not under engine and all these other things, under test double. And right away you see the code that you use when you're writing it, right? So right away I see test double 4 and I've got an entry point. And from there it's all about good naming, you know, none of this crazy stuff down here, derive label. Like it's just gonna take me putting all of this code, all this 3,000 lines of code that we generated today in my headspace and like starting to dial it in so I understand it and can make it approachable. And a lot of that's just like in my head. It's hard to kind of talk through. I did talk through it, in fairness, under the base code field guide. I did talk about you know, real world practices for less complex, more readable code. And again, if AI was managing all of this, then it's no big deal. Oh look, it already changed this. Fabricate. If AI managed all this top to bottom forever, then I kind of don't care what the code looks like, right? But I think as an open source package, there's still room to care for these types of things. So yeah, it's just me kind of going through file by file that it made here and making sure that the naming feels right, the placement feels right. You know, what it does, I'm probably not going to be that critical of, to the point of the AI bit. Like, I don't think I'll be super critical about what it does, because that's been architected by Claude, and I'm okay with that. And I think a lot of that's mitigated by like a guidelines.md file over here or something that tells future AI, you know, what to do or how the project's split up. So yeah, anyways. And again, if you're going to contribute, there is a bare minimum. Again, not to gripe on not to gripe on Mockery necessarily. Like, it's hard to contribute to any project. You have to know a little bit about the domain, right? Like, you kind of have to understand, oh, matching as matchers and diagnostics. Again, I think diagnostics could probably go away, and the engine just has a renderer. Like, it just has a renderer. I think the diagnostics term, we saw kind of how it got there, but I feel like it's a bit dense. So, is this the last module or milestone that we are working on today? Whoops, not Scratchpad. Architecture. Yes, M4 is it. M4 is it. So after M4, you kind of just want to know like how it works, right? Let's see some of this in action. Let's look at book. Where is this used? Test double test. So let's look at some tests, see how it works. Okay, so we got a test double for book repository interface. Interesting. Makes a new book, makes a second book. So double allows find and returns first and second. Okay. So we didn't say with, so all of these double find one gets second, double find one gets second. Interesting. Test sequential returns hold at the last value on further calls. See, I don't think it should work that way. we've perfectly landed on a test where the implementation doesn't work the way I feel like it should. I think this, in fairness, I think this is how Mockery does work. I'd have to go look. But like, I would probably rather see that. I don't want to mess this up because I know Claude's working right now. So I'm gonna leave that alone. But yeah, of course Claude is like perfectly running the tests as I just messed with them. So anyway, yeah. See, we got to, that's the other thing. That's like, you know, it's probably 2 streams away, but like, got to use this. I honestly want to like, what I would want to do is get into, I would want to pull something down like the Laravel framework and attempt to swap. That's like my benchmark. Let's see if the camera turns back on. All right, cool. Yes, it does. Awesome. That's the benchmark. That's like a very easy, in my opinion, Claude like skill, whatever predefined tasks of like how to switch Mockery for this new library. That would be the goal. Like, can you drop this into something like the Laravel framework that has tens of thousands of tests, its own internal mocking, it's using Mockery at that level? Can you swap its code base to use this and everything still pass in all of the ways in which it might mock things, right? Same with one of my own projects where I do some more mocking or partial mocking or deeper mocking. Like, that's my benchmark. That's going to take a little bit of code, but what's really cool about that is it's right up my alley because you're kind of making a shift, if you will, that goes from Mockery to test double. And that, of course, would have value to me over time if this gained traction to be able to swap them. Again, as we saw in like Scratchpad, like they're pretty close in their interface. We would need to figure out their they're pretty close like in what the API looks like, right? From like a very basic perspective. There's obviously harder calls than this, a lot of edge cases that I would need to figure out. And again, another reason why I would want to understand, hey, is my thing feature complete? Like, oh, a big library like, you know, or a big, you know, code base, PHP code base that has a bunch of tests like the Laravel framework, like it's probably using Mockery in ways that so far I haven't like architected, you know, with Claude. So that's kind of where I would want to go, you know, 2 or 3 streams from now. Is like finish this up next week where it has PHP unit integration, drop it in a project, try to use it, see how it works, like in a fresh project, not its own test suite that we just saw is like a little bit spell checky cyclic, right? It has fixtures, but there might be some things in there that we'd want to change first. But using it will surface those. And then once I'm actually able to use it with that, then it's like, hey, can I swap this out? Can I completely swap Mockery out and have like feature parity with the way most people use it, but a richer syntax, right? And better messages. Like the only thing that I would want to fail coming back from something like the Laravel framework test suite with thousands of tests is like maybe it's got like an exception mismatch type or something, right? Or maybe it checks for something in the exception message of Mockery that is no longer the same, right? Because we now have a new expressive message. Those types of failures, fine, but like if it ran green, again, that feels like I'm tagging. Anyway, how close are we here? New updated tests, golden fixtures, full run suite. Okay, it's doing stuff. So I think when this is done, that's it for today's stream. We went about an hour and a half. We basically built the whole thing, except for the PHP unit integration. And then it says M6 is basically docs and tag 1.0. And that's kind of, you know, in fairness, that is kind of like the other thing of the Scratchpad. And it goes under easy to contribute, but I think better docs, right? Better docs, for sure. In fact, that does make it easy to contribute, but like, let's say just better docs. You know, like Laravel, you know, prose. That's kind of what we're after there. And that, again, do that with Claude, right? Keep the architectural doc, let it scan the code base, generate me a developer-focused, you know, top to bottom, prose-oriented. Like, I would want a combination of, like, the Laravel documentation, like, from, like, a design split-up searchability kind of thing. But also maybe, like, I think Carbon's got a decent... I like the, is it under guide? Yeah. Oh, they changed it. Just when I was about to sing praise, they changed it to look like Laravel's. I love Laravel's docs. I think it's best in class for sure. And again, what I'm about to say is a reflection of more about how much it's used and how many features it has and all of that. My only gripe with the Laravel docs would just be like, as a newcomer, you don't know what you don't know. And so, like, while this is all broken out wonderfully, like a book with chapters and sub-chapters and whatever, if you don't know where something squarely lands, it's kind of hard to find, right? So as someone who's used this for like 10 years, I have to remember, like, oh, is the stuff about, you know, is the stuff about jobs in queues? Do I go under queues to read about jobs, or is it under its own jobs section? Like, controller middleware, is that in routing or is that in controllers? Like, there are just some edge cases where it's a little hard to see where things are. So the reason I was bringing up Carbon is their old docs was just all one page and you kind of just scroll down. Like, again, Laravel has so much in here that's not possible. It'd crash your browser. But I think for something like this testing library, I just want like a single page that you read kind of top to bottom, and it's got the side nav to jump to sections like Carbon did. Again, I'm sure I could go find the old stuff, but anyway, that's what I'm envisioning in my head for the docs. Better docs. Definitely better docs. Okay, loose mode is done. Implemented and verified. Loose mode implements architecture's full safe default by return type table. Scalars, array intervals, blah, 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 all the stuff. Okay, with a note on PHP reflections, don't preserve union declaration order. Okay, deep. One resolver, two call sites. Okay. Pass-through mode, pass-through. Delegates unmatched calls while configured expectations still intercept. Awesome. Provenance tagging. So this is the birthplace tagging, as we saw. So it tracks where it comes from. Threaded into 5 diagnostic types. Okay, deep. Intersection type fabrication. Class generator gained a multi-target code path. Double states mode default flipped from M1 stand-in strict to real architected default loose. Full test suite. Let me explain loose mode a little bit more, because this is actually, I think, where the density, a lot of the density and the reflection and the craziness is to handle this. So when you make, technically speaking, when you make something like a spy, or what this library is calling loose mode, your code still needs to be able to call one of these test objects, but it's not actually calling the underlying thing. You can think of it like, if you're a Laravel dev, which I think most of my audience is, you can think of it kind of like a null driver, right? So you call this thing and you're just going to get like null back. It doesn't do anything, right? It's innocuous. You're able to do stuff with it. You're able to call and invoke it and use it in your code that's under test, right? But it's not going to throw any exceptions or anything like that. You don't have to set up any expectations or tell it to allow certain methods. You can kind of just like make it a loose or make it a spy, and you listen for the calls and everything can just work. The challenge with that from a testing library perspective is that you can't simply just return null for everything, right? Because your code nowadays might have type hints, and those type hints need to be honored. They might not be nullable, right? So you need to be able to say like, oh, okay, if I am doubling, loosely this book interface, if we go back to our scratch pad, like if I just say test double foo, and then underneath here I call, foo bar, if I actually call this in my code, so let's say this is my test, and this is my code, again, oversimplified. Under this current loose thing, if bar returned a string, but I just returned null, well, now I'm going to have a runtime exception with my test. And it's going to get a little confusing because it's like, well, wait a second, this thing, why am I getting a null exception, or can't access reference whatever on null? Like it's not going to be very obvious. So what actually has to happen in the test library is it has to say foo is actually foo, and it has to recreate all of its like method signatures and return types to be able to properly kind of give back the dummy object, so theoretically your code can play on. That's hard. I think that's going to be probably the biggest challenge of the library. And I don't have to support that, but that's what makes this DX a little bit smoother, is its ability to be able to do that. And I think, again, backed by the intelligence of AI and seeing how other libraries have done it, like Mockery or Fake or whatever, like there is a way through. So that might need a little bit of refinement, but that's basically why this was the last module. While it was the last module stone, is this loose mode is huge. So yeah, that's why I want the loose mode. That's kind of in a nutshell, very high level of like what we're kind of talking about here. It needs to be able to handle the runtime implications while remaining, loose and not having to define everything that gets called on it. Things like the testing layer and like, well, they get around this because they actually have a fake implementation of that class where it's predefined what those methods do and call, and they match the original signature of the class. Since we're doing testing objects dynamically, we have no clue of all the objects in the whole wide PHP ecosystem that we're going to test. We have to do this in more of like a reflection dynamic way. And again, that's the challenge. So it says it's done with that. We're gonna let it be done with that. I think this is where we're stopping today. So short of the PHP unit integration, which is really just a testing harness and some teardown, this works. So let's go back here. Let's vendor bin pint this. Whoops, vendor bin pint. Let's git add tests and source and see what's left. Nothing but our scratch pads and architecture. So git commit -m. We'll say m4 loose. What do we call this? Loose modes or modes? Well, loose modes. Loose/partial modes is what we're after. Yeah. All right, cool. Git push that up. Everything should pass. It said it did. We saw the lint pass. I'm not going to wait on that. Let's go ahead and close that down. Okay, cool. So I think what I'm going to do is just back away for a day. I'm going to let this kind of sit, and then I'm going to come at it with fresh eyes tomorrow or before next week's stream and give it some refactoring, some of the refactoring we talked about, because I think there's an opportunity to kind of clean up this footprint a little bit. Because again, one of the highest goals is this is easy and approachable to contribute to. And plus, as a fledgling thing, again, I don't expect to like nail this as soon as it's launched. So I'm gonna want contributions of like, oh, it hit this edge case in loose mode, right? Because this is a hard problem. So there's a lot more work to do there. But before we can even get to a library that's easier to contribute to, like, I think I want to give it a first pass for kind of like the base code practices and so forth, and seeing if we can get rid of some of the smells that we saw in there. Then I could even put another AI model at it and try to find things like, where does this behave differently than mockery or something like that, right? Those are kind of future bars we could do together. But I'm going to give it the base code pass on my own. But as you can see, I'm making nice atomic commits out here on it's public repo for V2. Looks like something already failed for some reason, so we'll check that out. But I'm kind of putting these all up in somewhat atomic commits per module anyway. So you'll see another one here like base code. So if you want to follow along with the changes, great. We will see why CI failed on 8.5 and 8.6 here in a minute. But my guess is something in PHP changed that it's using, because my system's 8.4 and the 8.4 test pass. So my guess is Claude just made a mistake on something. We'll look into that. I'll feed it to Claude. But yeah, if you want to kind of come see what we did today, we basically had Claude write 4,000 lines of code across 93 files to effectively recreate mockery with theoretically a better developer experience and lower barrier to entry when you're needing to create test objects when writing tests. So that's the goal here. Again, draft state. We got a lot of work to do still, but pretty awesome that Claude theoretically created all that in about an hour and a half. So, all right, thanks everybody for joining live. I will see you next Wednesday to work on the PHP unit integration and review some of the refactoring. See you then.